In 1996, the Tri-State Sculptors Education Association was a group comprised of sculptors from Virginia, North and South Carolina. They were planning to hold their annual fall conference and exhibition at the new Greenville Technical College Greer campus, and delayed landscaping and finalizations to the GTC opening. Tri-State was abruptly notified in the spring of 1996 things would not be ready to accommodate the conference and the outdoor sculpture. The group approached the Greenville Downtown Association just as word came across my desk they were looking for a new venue. The USC Upstate campus was ripe for enhancement with outdoor sculpture. We had several quads, open green spaces, and water features that were waiting to serve as a backdrop for monumental outdoor artworks. As you might imagine, in 1996, the trees were much smaller, there was modest landscaping, and there was no arboretum, with a managed creek that we see today. In my eyes, it was a blank canvas waiting for a brush mark. I contacted the event organizer for Tri-State, and after meeting to walk over our campus, we agreed there was much potential and it could be a definite win-win for both of our organizations. I quickly developed a proposal, not bothering to worry about cost or logistics, and submitted it to the then Chancellor John Stockwell and Academic Vice Chancellor Jane Stevens. In a very brief time, I got a call from Vice Chancellor Stevens saying they were intrigued by my proposal and wanted more details. One thing led to another, and approvals came that allowed me to move forward with inviting the Tri-State Conference to the USC Upstate campus. Over the next few months, I worked with Tri-State and the exhibiting artists to establish the schedule, get the works installed, and prepare for their fall program. Over 20 sculptures were placed on the Upstate campus in late summer of 1996 and stayed on view through May of 1997. I had negotiated with the group that they would be in charge of installation and under my supervision working with our facilities maintenance. The exhibit was a success. In fact, it was a huge success. It was the start of a new era at USC Upstate. During 1996-97, we had outside visitors, groups, schools, and students from a wide region to visit and see our collection. It was not unusual to be crossing campus and see a class discussing works in our collection. The sculptures were so well received by the university community that when time came for the artists to remove them, we were fortunate to be gifted 3 of the pieces that established our first permanent works in the outdoor sculpture collection. Here is Big Red 1 by Hannah Gibran. In fact, it's at the entrance of this building. It's become an iconic piece. It's one that is used in many of our flyers, catalogs, and promotional areas. You'll see students with their families taking selfies and pictures, and especially at graduation or during visitation. Hannah was head of sculpture at East Carolina University. Another piece that's very important is Gothic Gate. This is Jim Gallucci, who's from Greensboro, North Carolina. And this piece, I'm showing you 2 slides because it actually has an interactive piece in the center. You can see it moves. That invites people to come up and not just look at it, but actually interact with the piece. And I really love the fact that when we placed it, it's placed in front of our Humanities and Performing Arts Center. It's a gateway into the humanities, so it has a wonderful metaphor. Another piece was Red Sails by Dan Millspaul. This piece is in front of the Smith Building. Dan was head of sculpture at UNC Asheville before he retired. And this piece, and you'll notice that the pieces I've been showing you, I have collected or curated pieces that are typically abstract or non-objective in nature. They really emphasize design elements, materials, And they contrast with both landscape and with the buildings that we have. And so you'll see that most of the pieces are based around non-objective and abstraction. With the initial success of that conference, I began to pursue other artists that would be interested in exhibiting and place works on campus with the assistance of modest stipends, our great location, 24/7 access on I-26 and I-85, and over the 10-year period, over the years, we have exhibited works by Catherine Murray, sculptor at East Tennessee State University, Mike Williams, professional sculptor, Columbia, South Carolina, Bob Doster of Lancaster, South Carolina, Adam Walls, who was a former student and assistant professor at University of North Carolina, Pembroke, Doug Maccabee, assistant professor of Lander University, and this piece by Dangerfield Ashton, who was former instructor at the Spartanburg Day School. This work by Dangerfield, and you can see there an earlier work before we had the landscaping, and now how it's worked around there, and it really blends with the area. This work by Dangerfield was purchased through monies raised to honor Dr. Nancy Moore upon her retirement. Nancy was one of the original faculty members of USC Upstate, of USC Spartanburg, and taught in the Department of English. As part of our ongoing outreach with the region, we collaborated with Converse and Wofford colleges in 2010 for a 40-year retrospective of the work of Mayo McBoggs, who was former head of the art program at Converse College. Boggs passed away in 2014, and in 2016, his widow, Ashley, donated 2 works to Upstate that now enhance the Rotary Peace Park near the main entrance of 585. We also have in our permanent collection the Gun Amnesty Memorial by Winston Wingo. In fact, I was contacted a number of years ago when John Stockwell was still here. He said, "Jane, we have the opportunity to have this piece merely by going to pick it up. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yes, I'm very interested." This was a piece that was commissioned by the city of Spartanburg with the gun amnesty aspect. There had been an amnesty program law enforcement had managed, and they were taking in guns at no questions. This piece is an abstract form, but if you get up to the sculpture, you will see that it has disassembled parts from guns on it. So it's a very poignant piece. Another important element, Winston is a Spartanburg artist, and he's an African-American artist. So this put the first African-American piece in our collection, and that was very important for us. Here's another view. This piece is out behind Tukey, and you can see this view with the trees. It really is a very nice example. Past artists we've had, I mentioned earlier Mike Williams from Columbia. These are examples of pieces using Corten steel, using natural oxidation, which is often very good to use within the landscape. They're not as abrupt, although they are very dynamic geometric forms. They do blend in very well with the flora and fauna, but they do tend to contrast with the concrete area. Bob Doster, I mentioned earlier. Bob uses the natural oxidation, but he also uses a lot of stainless steel, brushed stainless steel. These are pieces we have had in the past, and Bob has been great to work with because his pieces often kind of come and go. He's sort of been willing to lend us pieces for our collection, and then if he has a show or if pieces are sold, he'll say, "Jane, I need to pick this one up." Bob recently was commissioned by the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind to create a piece which is actually a hand showing a sign, and it is now located on Morgan Square. It was just installed a few weeks ago. This is also Bob's. This was at the back of the Humanity and Performing Arts Center, and this was called Flight. It was a favorite piece, but I think the city of Greensboro paid money for it, so we got to fly away eventually. these are two pieces by Adam Walls. Adam is a former student of USC Upstate, and he got his MFA at Winthrop in sculpture. Now, you might look at these and say, well, these seem really quirky and bright, and they don't work well with the landscape. Well, these pieces are very bright. He usually creates these rather enlarged, very humorous sort of toy-like forms. But let me show you the importance of having them on our campus. The interaction, and this was an Art Atlas field study group that happened to be out there, but our students would often climb on them and play on them, and that's exactly what the artist wanted. So there are times when pieces may be a little more abrupt or more dynamic, such as these, but the interaction with the viewer has been very important. This is another one of Adam's examples of his work, and this is a recent piece we were able to get on loan from him. This is now down by the Catherine P. Hicks Visual Arts Center, who is with us today. And this piece has more of an organic design to it, but he uses highly saturated automotive colors on the surface, and is actually a very attractive piece. This was another work that we acquired this year by Jim Bellucci. Jim is a professional sculptor out of Greensboro, North Carolina. This is now located in front of the College of Arts and Sciences Center. And the center part of this is also another gate that pivots. So again, it attracts viewers, and students will quite often want to take their pictures and be up there and be involved, which is a nice aspect of these works. I come back to this last piece, and I get to share with you what I think is some very exciting news. Last January, Scott Strader, who's from Atlanta, had these pieces, and you can see one in the front here and one in the back. And Scott had donated this front piece to us, and we've been very excited with it. Chancellor Kelly had been very pleased with it. Well, this morning, before I left to come here, I got an email from Scott saying, Jane, by any chance, would you all be interested in another donation? I said, why, Scott, I'd love it. So the piece you see in the background has just today been donated to us by Scott Strader, professional sculptor out of Atlanta, and will now be part of our permanent collection here at USC Upstate. I'll end by saying that I have visions for expanding the sculpture very much the way Chancellor Kelly has suggested. We have talked about it. I'm very excited about having this grow and develop to be, we would love to be a location, a destination for sculpture, especially being on that I-26, I-85 corridor. And we believe this can happen. And if I can keep pulling those strings and not worry about those costs and logistics, I think we'll do okay. Thank you so much for being with me today.